So, good morning. The title of today's shir is The Holiness of the Beit HaMikdash in its Desolation. So, we know Yerushalayim is referred to Mesos Kol Haaretz in Tehillim. It's the joy of the whole world. And today, we witness the fact that there are so many people who wish to have Yerushalayim as their center. The Muslims and the Christians are also like it. Because it's Kiryat Melech Rav, as it says, the city of the great king, the king of the world. And why especially the Muslims? Because Avraham Avinu, first son, was Ishmael. And he prayed to Hashem that Ishmael, who also accepted belief in one God, that he should be given reward, especially as he was also willing, and he undertook Brit Milah. So therefore, if one reads between the lines, as it's done in the Midrash and the Zohar, and if you look what is described in many passages in the Tanakh, that Ishmael was given the ability to rule over Eretz Israel and even Yerushalayim if the land is reik min ha-mitzvot, if it's empty from the mitzvot performed by Am Yisrael. If Am Yisrael fills Eretz Israel with mitzvot, Ishmael has no power. But since that has not been achieved, it's achieved to some extent, but not sufficiently, that's why they also have power. And today you find the extreme Muslims, Al-Quds, Al-Aqsa, they're concerned that Yerushalayim must be taken over by their religion. So let us try to understand this more deeply. In fact, the phrase in Lamentations, which we're going to see on Tisha B'Av, Al Har Tzion Sheshamem, it says, when Har Tzion became desolate, Shualim hilchu ba, foxes walked through Yerushalayim. So some say this is a vague reference to the sly method used by many of the Muslims. As we know, the Muslims are described in Tehillim and other places as developing a streak of constant deceit. They make promises, they don't keep them. So also, we know that amongst the animals, the fox is the most cunning and sly of the animals. Similarly also, unfortunately, Ishmael is Pere Adam. He's a human being who even admits the existence of one spiritual, non-material God, but he's Pere, he's wild, so like a wild animal. And when one hears, I heard yesterday, the terrible reports of some of the most extreme Muslims who are now very becoming powerful in Iraq, they're worse than Hamas and worse than Al-Qaeda, and they're just killing people. So we're in a very desperate situation to be faced with such wild animals and nature, and they're like foxes on the Har Tzion, but it's Shamem. So I think we must try to understand more deeply what is the significance of the Beit HaMikdash for which we're mourning, that's been destroyed, and what aspects of holiness exist until today. So to understand this more deeply, I'd like all of you, if possible, to turn to the Rambam, who really crystallizes this whole situation well. There's 3 volumes over there on that table, if any of you don't have one. And you should turn to Hilchot Beit HaBechira, which are the laws concerning the chosen house. And even this title is significant. Where is it first referred to as Beit HaBechira? We call it Beit HaMikdash. Why is it called Beit HaBechira? Maybe, why not sit over here? Take your stand over here. Easy. Okay. Why is it called Beit HaBechira? What's your opinion? Let's hear. For this year, it's good you have also a Jerusalem Bible or have pretty good knowledge of the Tanakh. So why is it called Beit HaBechira?
Hashem chose it. Hashem chose it.
Where does it say that?
In the Chumash is the place where I will choose to rest my
It constantly repeats in Sefer Devarim, Hamakom asher yivchar Hashem l'shaken shemo sham. The place which Hashem will choose so that His Shekhinah should rest there. That's the essence of the place of the Mishkan. So, of course, this has very deep significance. And it wasn't revealed clearly, openly, till later. So when you, it's Hamakom asher yivchar Hashem shaken shemo sham. It's not Gilgal, it's not Shiloh, it's not Nov, it's not those temporary places where the sanctuary, which was built in the desert, where it's traveled from place to place. But the ultimate place, Makom Asher Hashem Shaken Shemo Sham. That's it. That's the significance of the word Beit HaBechira. So the Rambam begins, if you turn to the first chapter, Mitzvah Asei Lasot Bait Lashem Mukhan Liot Makrivim Bo HaKorbanot B'chogegim Elav Shalosh Pamim B'Shana V'Asur L'Mikdash. It's a positive mitzvah to build a house to Hashem, to be prepared there to offer up the offerings, and to go and have festivals there 3 times in the year. V'Asur L'Mikdash, as it says. And it's already explained in the Torah. The Mishkan, the sanctuary, which was made by Moshe Rabbeinu, by Yalafi Sha'ah. But that was only temporary. Because you haven't yet come, and then if you return to Halacha Gimel, we're not going to all the details of the history, as you know, but let's just mention briefly. When it was ultimately established in Jerusalem, it's something very interesting. Yeshua conquered the land, divided amongst the tribes, and still the Mishkan was going from one place to the other, not yet settled. Even the time of the judges, not yet settled. When did it become settled?
David HaMelech.
Pardon?
David HaMelech.
David HaMelech. And was it conquered? Also conquered? Hashem gave a command to conquer Eretz Israel. You have to fight battles. They fought battles with great miracles. And Yeshua. Then afterwards, under the judges, there were also quite a lot of wars. It wasn't yet all taken over, although it was already been divided amongst the tribes. But they had many problems, the enemies. It's only under the kingship of David HaMelech that they took over Yerushalayim, but not with any conquest. How was it acquired? The place, the Koran of Arana. It was paid with full money. It was a purchase. Because we see this is going to explain a few things to us. It was purchased, the place was purchased. David HaMelech couldn't build it because also involved with warfare. And Shlomo HaMelech, who no longer needed to enter into warfare, he built the Beit HaMikdash. He arranged it. Because his reign, Eretz Yisrael flourished. It almost seemed this could become the Geula. In the time of Shlomo, all the tribes were united. There was peace, shalom. Anyway, we'll analyze this further in the Rambam. Kevin shenivne hamikdash b'Yerushalayim. It says before the Mishkan was settled in Jerusalem, before Shlomo Melech built the Beit HaMikdash, it was permissible to bring offerings also in other places. But once that became built, it was forbidden to build any other places. It says, Nesru kol haMekomot kulan livnot behen bait l'Hashem u'l'Hakkorban. We were no longer allowed to do it. Ve'ein sham bait l'dorei dorot ele b'Yerushalayim belvad. And then, time Shlomo, it was fixed that for all generations, Yerushalayim is the place where there would be the temple, the holy place for Hashem. Uvaha Moriah Sheba. And where should it be? On the Temple Mount. As it says, Vayom David Zehu Beit Hashem Elokim, V'zeh Mizbeach Le'olah L'Yisrael, U'mezot Menuchati Adeat. This is the resting place of the Shekhinah forever. And as we know, going right back to the first remarks, that's what's happened. You know, we live in the most exciting age ever in human history. And we don't have prophecy. No prophet, no real prophecy anymore. No open divine revelation. So you might say that was greater. So from one angle it was greater. But all the prophecies had not been fulfilled. Today we live in the age of fulfillment of prophecy. See, in this prophecy, we know the holy city in the world is Yerushalayim. Certainly for all those who have a concept of monotheism. Then it says further, Binyan Shebana Shlomo Kvar Mefurish B'Melachim. The type of building is explained clearly in the Book of Kings. V'chein Binyan He'atid Libanot. And also, the future temple, Al Mishu Katuv B'Yechezkel, but Einu Mefurish Mvua. It is mentioned, described a little bit in Yechezkel, where it says even the name of that place is Hashem. Hashem appears there. But it's not in detail. Va'anshe ba'it sheini, and the men of the second temple period, which is built in the days of Ezra, they built it similar to Binyan Shlomo, and also contained certain concepts which are mefurish, which is explained in Yechezkel. Then the Rambam goes into more details to indicate details of what was in the Beit HaMikdash, describing primarily how it was in the second Beit HaMikdash, with a hinting of things that might also exist in the third Beit HaMikdash. And then from here, I think we should go over to second chapter, Perek Sheni. And here he speaks after all the Beit HaMikdash. It had a holy place, the Kodesh Koroshim, the Holy of the Holies, and then it had a Heichal, where there was a courtyard for the men, courtyard for the women. And one of the main purposes of the Beit HaMikdash was to bring offerings, to express gratitude to Hashem. So, if there's a spare copy, maybe you should take one. Should be not. A spare copy of the Rambam? Another one? Okay.
I can share.
I've got a big picture, I've got a very big copy. So, He says, the Mizbeach has a specific place which one shouldn't change forever. Because זה מזבח לעולה לישראל. So the Rambam says, and it's this place of the Beit HaMikdash, Nekad Yitzchak Avinu. That's where was the binding of Yitzchak, and that's Lech Lecha al Eretz HaMoriah. First mention of it being Moriah. What's the significance of Moriah? What's it mean?
More, בגלל המור שבו.
Yes, Kardashian, it spreads.
Perfume, more.
It spreads things that bring high level of spirituality. So the mashal is used like a very pleasant odor in the whole world. The ways of the Torah are ways of pleasantness, but more likely it's connected. A moreh is a teacher. Teaching of God is the place where the teaching of God goes out to the whole world. As it says, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. So that's where it goes. And ultimately, all mankind will recognize it. And even what we're seeing today is more and more people do recognize this truth. And it says in Divrei Yamim, when Shlomo HaMelech built the house, Vayachel Shlomo livnot et Beit Hashem Yerushalayim b'ha-Moriah, asher nirel David Avihu, asher ichin b'mkom David b'goren Anan HaYevusi. The building of the temple of Shlomo is here described in important phrases. When Akedah took place of Yitzchak, it does not yet give the full name of Yerushalayim, but it does say, Vayikra Avraham Shema Mokomahu. What did he call it?
Yireh.
Hashem Yireh. Hashem sees what's going on in this world. Hashem Hashem, and today we say Hashem Bahar Hashem Yireh. He can be seen on the mountain of Hashem. But he does not mention the name Yerushalayim. But we do know from a previous passage already that there was another name to this place, Har Moriah. Now also Avraham Avinu called it Hashem Yireh. The question is, where do you find in the rest of the Tanakh that the place is called Hashem Yireh? Where do you find it? So the sages say, what was it called before?
Shalem.
Pardon?
Shalem.
Shalem. Said Malki Tzedek Melech Shalem. He was the king of that area. Malki Tzedek was the son of Shem. And the 7 Noachide laws, which is really a code of basic civilization for mankind, which was already revealed to Adam HaRishon. Then afterwards it was revealed in clearer fashion to Noach, and Noach passed it on to Shem, or referred to it also in his prophetic words. It says, V'yishkon b'ol Shem. And then it was called Shalem. What's Shalem mean?
Whole, full.
Completeness. Completeness. So you can say like this, the concept of the Noachide codes is to create a striving for moral perfection and social perfection of mankind. Because that's basically what it is. It's not so much emphasizing a high connection with Hashem, although the source of everything is Hashem, in the teaching of the Shev Mitzvah B'nai Noach. But there aren't so many mitzvot as they're given over to Mamlechet Kom, people of Israel, in the Torah that was revealed later. But this Torah, what did it signify? It signified mainly how mankind can learn to become better moral human beings, thereby fulfilling the Tzelem Elokim. And that was the teaching in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'eva. And Avraham Avinu developed it, and when he brought the Akedah Yitzchak, he added the name Hashem Yireh. And the sages say, henceforth, although there is not mentioned explicitly, the name of that place became Yerushalayim, and explains to us something very significant. The name Yerushalayim appears in the Tanakh 677 times. And generally speaking, with 5 exceptions, it is spelt Yireh and Shalem. Others Yeru, that's like Yireh, and Shalem, Jerusalem, because that's how it's written. Yerushalayim is Yud, Reish, Vav, Shin, Lamed, Mem. In 672 instances in the Tanakh. 5 times it's got a Yud there. Otherwise we go after the way in which we pronounce it, Yerushalayim, double. So without now going into this too deep, there's a lot of aspects to this name Yerushalayim, but without going into it too deeply, we know that the ending Aim is always for something double. And Yerushalayim's got a double aspect to it, since Avraham Avinu. Yireh, which means to make a strong connection with Hashem, to give up your life for Hashem, like exemplified by Akedah Yitzchak. But Avraham Avinu understood. He was not asked to sacrifice his son. He didn't understand it first. The way he understood the commandment of Hashem was, he's got to sacrifice him. But it means that in life, he's got to give over his life, his total energy, to serve Hashem. And that's the significance of a sacrifice. Now, the sacrifice is called the korban, to come near. How do you come near to Hashem? If you feel Hashem is so good to us, He gives us everything, all the blessings that are possible He gives us. What does He want us to do? To express gratitude by giving over our energy and the fantastic qualities that He's given to every human being to reach true happiness by channelizing all their instincts in the service of Hashem. That's the concept of the Akedah. And that's what Avraham Avinu understood. So if he called Hashem Yireh, Hashem has really appeared to me in such prophecy that I could not deny. Although the Yetzer Hara came to me in many different ways and said, what are you doing? You've gone insane at your age. When you've been teaching everybody the sanctity of life and the sort of love you have to show to your children, and you go and do this, which is a contradiction to the promise Hashem made to you. So it's a contradiction to the logic. Hashem told you, from this son you're going to have an enormous people through whom will be blessed all the families of the earth. What's going to happen to that if you're going to do this act? And what's going to happen to your teachings of saintliness and morality if you do such an act? So it goes against logic, it goes against morality, and certainly goes against the principle of love. And after all, you were the one, Hashem revealed Himself to you to ask first, what's your opinion about killing the people of Sodom? And then you went ahead and said, we must not allow them to be killed, anybody who's innocent. If there are 10 people there who are innocent, even if they're not saints, you've got to save the whole city, all the cities. And Hashem agreed, but there weren't 10. And therefore this anti-chesed, cruel, corrupt society, Hashem decided has to be destroyed, and you pleaded. And here I wasn't allowed to plead. And the Rambam says this is one of the greatest proofs of the enormous level of certainty of a true prophet. A true prophet has no way to deny the truth of that prophecy. And that's here. So he overcame it. He in other words, in this ability and even decision to go and offer up his son, he showed that he was truly tied up with Hashem, to such an extent he couldn't go against what Hashem told him. And then when he told him afterwards, you don't do it, then he understood it even more. He understood. In other words, we're supposed to serve Hashem b'chol nafshecho, as we say. B'chol nafshecho, with your whole life. That even, it's like Rabbi Akiva, we've got to feel during life, and Rabbi Akiva certainly was one who loved life, and said, a person's got to, under all circumstances, preserve his life. But we've got to recognize that we've got to give over our life to Hashem. And that's Akedah. So, this is the significance of Yerushalayim, not based on Hashem. It's described in Divrei HaYomim. There it also already says, when Shlomo HaMelech built it in Yerushalayim on Har Moriah, because this was the place prepared through David HaMelech when he purchased the barns, the threshing floor of Arnan HaYevusi. He was willing to sell it to him. It's interesting, by the way, it's mentioned by the Midrash, also a type of prophecy. It says the three most holy places for the people of Israel. One is Temple Mount, and one is Hebron, first holy place, given beforehand, and the third one is Shechem. Those three places were not conquered by our ancestors. They were purchased by Kesef Malay at a very high price. They were Yerushalayim. Avraham Avinu did the same in Hebron, and Yaakov Avinu did the same in Shechem, where Yosef is buried. So this is very significant. And today these are the three places where we have most confrontations with the Muslim extremists. You see, it's in history. In fact, the Khatam Sofer says these three correspond to Torah, Vodah, Gmilut, Chasadim. Why? Because Chesed, that was Avraham Avinu. And the ultimate Chesed was Chesed Shel Emet. So he established the burial place because Chesed goes on even after life. So it's called Chesed of truth. That's how it's referred to in the Chumash. So it's Chesed. And Shechem is the place where Am Yisrael, when they entered Eretz under Yeshua, and they came to Elonei Moreh, there was one side Har Gerizim, the other side Har Eval, the two mountains on both sides of Shechem, one mountain fertile and the other one rocky, where the people had to accept upon themselves common solidarity and responsibility, not just for public sins, but even for private sins. I mean, of course, as far as they could. They said we're all responsible one for the other. Therefore, if you look there, the list, what they had to declare, they had to declare a blessing and a curse. You want a blessing like the mountain where everything grows, or you want a curse where nothing grows. It's up to you to choose as a nation. And you've got to recognize you're one nation, and you've got to work together to make sure that you become a saintly nation. That's acceptance of Torah. That's Shechem. And then the Moriah at the height of service of Hashem, giving over your life to Hashem, serving Hashem constantly. So now let's go further in the Rambam. And the Rambam first explains Har Moriah from the angle of Yitzchak Avinu. Why? Because that's when it got the significance, Bahar Hashem Yara'eh, there's mention of the future Beit HaMikdash, is hinted at, which will be in Yerushalayim. And that's why the Rambam connects it here straight away with Shlomo HaMelech. Then Masoret B'Yad HaKol, but there's an ancient tradition, שהמקום שבנה בו דוד ושלמה המזבח בגורן ארוונה, הוא המקום שבנה בו אברהם המזבח ועקד עליו יצחק, the same place. After all, it's given the name Har Moriah, but he said, the Mizbeach itself which in a particular spot, the same spot, is the Arcade of Yitzchak. It's also, it's going backwards now in history. So that's also the place which was built by Noach, the Mizbeach, when he came out from the ark to start a brave new world after the deluge and to receive the Torah B'nai Noach. And then that was passed on to Shem and Abel. The same Mizbeach upon which there was the dispute, Cain Hevel, as a result of which we had the first murder. And that's the place where Adam HaRishon brought his first offering, Mishom Nivra, because it says Adam HaRishon was created min ha'afar. Afar Adama. So which Afar Adama was it? It was the same spot. Nimakom kaparato nivra. In other words, he gained atonement by bringing an offering. And all mankind gained atonement by bringing offerings there. True offerings. And that's the place in which he was created, yes.
So, since it's such an important place for all mankind, why the tabernacle was not stationed there?
The what?
The tabernacle, the Mishkan. Why the Mishkan was not stationed there?
It was.
It was?
Well, more or less the Aron, which is the center of the Mishkan was the Holy Ark. And the Holy Ark was placed there. As soon as David HaMelech built it. As soon as David HaMelech purchased it. But since David HaMelech was not permitted to build the Beit HaMikdash, he was given the plans of the Beit HaMikdash already, but he wasn't permitted because he was guilty of spilling blood, even though it was wars that were obligatory, wars of defense, and some wars were commanded because of the wicked dispute. So, still, the Beit HaMikdash is dedicated to life. That's the concept of Akedat as well. It's very interesting. I just add to this a contemporary, while we're still on Akedat Yitzchak, contemporary fulfillment. As follows. I've explained the last few weeks that when we have the word Oyev mentioned in the Tanakh of the enemies of the people of Israel, in contrast to Tzorer, in contrast to Sonei, whom does it refer to? Remember? Rabbi Bechai develops it. He says it refers to the Koch of Ishmael, who have an inner hatred, because based, of course, on inner jealousy, which already existed between Yitzchak and Ishmael. Of course, Ishmael was very troubled that he was asked to leave the house. He couldn't be a Yoresh, Lo Yirash, Ben Amazot in Benim Yitzchak. These are all hints for the future. And what was the blessing which was given to Avraham Avinu? Very interesting. At the end of the Akedah, Hashem says, because you've passed this, the most difficult of all the tests, and you passed it, and you were willing to show that you give everything over for the service of Hashem, even if it's very difficult, and you will not forsake faith in Hashem, even if you are reduced to ashes, because sages say, that the ashes of Yitzchak are found on the Mizbeach. Now this doesn't, Yitzchak was just willing to give over his life, like Avraham Avinu also willing to give over his son's life, his future. He was willing to give up all his future, even, if necessary, but he wouldn't lose his faith. Even if it means there's nothing, you don't lose faith in Hashem, even if it looks that you're giving up your future. So usually I do interpret the whole of the Akedah, we understand it more deeply, on the level of Ma'ashavot Siman Labanim, what happened to the forefathers signed for the future. And here it's even mentioned in the text, the blessing that was given, because you were willing to fulfill my will, the utmost level in this holy place, therefore, through you will be blessed all the families of the earth, and your seed will inherit Echar Oyevav. V'nivrucha kol goy aretz, v'yiraz zaracha Echar Oyevav. So it speaks about the future. Your seed are going to inherit the gate of your enemy. So these two things, first of all, they're two different aspects. If all the families of the earth are blessed, that's where they're blessed through peace, not through taking over the gate of your enemies. What is the gate of your enemies? It's the Shar Shomayim. There's a reference here to the gate to heaven. And that's how it's described in Bereshit. And unfortunately, there might come a time when all the nations of the world are already preparing themselves in different ways to accept the monotheistic faith, which, as the Rambam describes at the end of his Yad Chazakah, which is so fantastic in all its expressions, it's unbelievable if you go into it deeply, the depth of each word in the Rambam. And in the uncensored version he says, Christianity and Islam are really roads to bring mankind to the true monotheism. And that's happening in certain circles. But so what's happened today? Unfortunately, amongst those, we have the two major groups, which do have kernels of civilization in them, sometimes even good fruits, and unfortunately sometimes rotten fruits, but still they've got certain potential of civilization in them. So the Oyev is the one who's got a hatred that he finds very difficult to control and which expresses itself in wildness, as is described in the previous shiurim we've been given. And Christianity is called a soine. They want to destroy it, but primarily their attempt is to convert us. While the other to convert us, and they're hoping in different ways we come there. Also, their concept of God is unfortunately distorted on the whole. But but it's here a prophecy that in the time when we hope that all the family of the earth will come to Hashem as it's quoted on the building of the United Nations, to the purpose of the of the human rights declarations of the United Nations, which are based, if you go into analysis of the United Nations Human Rights Declaration and its predecessors were based upon a detailed study of some medieval great scholars in international law. We've actually the founders of international law, like John Selden and others. Where they get it from? From the words of the prophets, from all indications both in the written and the oral law from the Talmud and the Rambam concerning the Noachide Code. That's where they took it from. It's got it now in the United Nations. Some people, UN should stand for useless nothing. And sometimes we say to ourselves, when you know now today all the amounts of weapons for the Hamas that are being stored in UNRWA buildings, that means under the United Nations, so we would wish they'd be useless nothings. They're a bit worse, many of them. So that's hinted at here. V'nivru kol goyei oretz, v'yirash zaracha Echar, but there's going to come a time, you might think, well, there's a big blockage here. Because who's now taking hold of the gate to heaven? Who's got it? The fox, the cunning fox, the Muslims. And they're destroying whatever Jewish aspects can still be found there, they're destroying them. That's what's going on here. And so we're in a very difficult, but what's the promise? Bahar Hashem Yara'eh, there's going to be a situation where it will change. If your seed will carry on the way of Avraham Avinu to follow in his footsteps, which is referred to in the previous chapter, to follow the Derech Hashem Lasot Tzedakah Mishpat, if you'll follow that in Eretz Israel, that both things will be fulfilled. You'll see it will get it back. B'yat HaMashiach. So now let's continue in the Rambam. So the Rambam, as I say, goes backwards. So it goes, even Adam HaRishon comes from there. Then he says, look, Halacha Gimel, Midot HaMizbeach mechuvanot harbe v'tzurato yedua ish meish. It's all known orally, exactly what should be the type of altar and its measurements. ומזבח שבנו בני הגולה כאין מזבח שעתיד לבנות עשוהו. So it's like this. The Rambam, the Bnei Agola, is going ahead, not the first Beit HaMikdash, it's the second Beit HaMikdash, which is built by those who came back from the Galut of Babel. So they had the measurements, and he says, they knew what they were. It was similar to the Mizbeach She'atid Libanot Asuhu, which will be built in the future, and you should not add or subtract from these measurements. And then it says, in fact, this is quoting a Mishnah in Idiot. 3 prophets came from the Galut of Babel to build the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, and they gave testimony, these prophets, and then afterwards, after that generation, there weren't more prophets. But at the beginning there were still prophets. One gave testimony the exact position of the altar, one gave testimony al midotav on its measurements, even if there's no Beit HaMikdash, don't think that the place is not holy. It's still holy. And one of them gave testimony that the holiness of this place remains forever. That's what the Ram wants to put here. And what is, there's 2 central positions. One is the central position of the altar, because it's the same place of the altar of Adam HaRishon, and of Noach, and then of Avraham Avinu, and then the first Beit HaMikdash, the second Beit HaMikdash. And you can bring a korban there even there's no Beit HaMikdash. As this is deciding many discussions in Gemara. Then it says, Mizbeach she'asa Moshe v'she'asa Shlomo she'asu b'nei Agola v'she'atid le'asot. He says all the same type of Mizbeach, which Moshe made, Shlomo made, which the second Beit HaMikdash made, and which were made in the future. Then he describes the measurements, Kula Es Amot Kova, they're all 10 cubits high. That's why it says Shlosh Amot Komato. That's Makom Maracha Belvad. When it says 3 Amot high, it's a reference to the top part of the Mizbeach, because it had like different sections. Then he says, the Mizbeach they made in the second Beit HaMikdash, and the one of the future is the one which is 32 Amot wide, squared. And in fact, they have reconstructed that Mizbeach, more or less.
Is it square or
Square.
is 32 on 32? So it makes it 32 on 32, 64 square, no?
Yeah, okay. Because it goes then into more details concerning the armor of more details concerning the measurements. If you want more detailed measurements, you'll have to learn the rest of this perek, and in some edition of the Rambam you'll have diagrams as well. But now I think we should go on to chapter 4, perek Revi'i. But there's another very important place, and that's the Evan, the stone in the Holy of Holies, which is on the west side, and on that they placed the Holy Ark. They also had there both the bottle that contained the mon, which was miraculous bread. The people should always be reminded that Parnassah comes from Hashem, And I think especially significant is the name Mon. The reason given why it's called Mon is just one aspect of the name. Ki lo yadu mahu, it says. Didn't know what it was. It was something unusual. But in that case, it should be called Ma. Why called Mon? Mon comes from the root portion, mana. In other words, the concept that livelihood is a portion Hashem and not kosi, is given to every person, not chalki. And that we should know Hashem is the one, Hazon Toram Kulo B'Tuvo. He gives people their livelihood. We should know that most words in Hebrew for food are connected with the physical and social struggle for existence and for a livelihood. Lechem, what's the root? Lilachem, warfare. Most wars have at their basis economical struggles, or struggles for land, struggles for markets, for oil, whatever it is. These are the many wars, milchama. Another word is seder, is provision. For that you have to hunt for it. Hunting means someone's killing animals. Somebody's got to hunt for it, so you kill other human beings. And another word is mazon, connected with klei zayin. Klei zayin are weapons. So, the letter zayin is a pictograph of a sword. But mon, that belongs to Beit HaMikdash. We should know better to teach us to have our sustenance in a way of peace. Umate Aaron. And the special choice of Aaron, which produced almonds, while the others didn't, you should recognize that the teachers of Am Yisrael, the Kohanim, they have been given a long-standing tradition, going right back to the time of the desert, to follow the ways of Aaron, to love human beings, and to love peace, and pursue peace, and do everything possible to create peace. And over Shebana Shlomo et habayit, the very significant phrase when Shlomo built the temple, Yadash Esofa Lechareb, he knew it was going to be destroyed. The hints in the Tanakh, we find proof of this. Although in his time everything was fantastic, but in his later years things were not so good. And as you know, he produced a son, Rechavam, his successor, who, like often sons go against their fathers, who didn't spread peace. And he got together with other youngsters who made a rebellion. And they taxed the people heavily, much more heavily. And once the people rebelled, and that produced a split in the kingdom, Yerovam. Now what happened with the split in the kingdom? The 10 tribes were lost, disappeared from Jewish history. But we see today that Hashem has his ways of hashgacha. Some of them are coming back in unusual ways, as you know. We have in the yeshiva, we've had experience of this, that they're coming back. It means, how do they come back? They're not considered part of the Jewish people. All right, the Ethiopians maybe yes. So it's the Ethiopians, not so simple, but there are some opinions that you can accept them as Jews without Geirut. But there are many others that come. It's also better even with them to have Geirut according to other opinions, because if you accept them as Jews, then there might be more severe problems of psulei chitun. They're not allowed to marry other Jews. But if you accept them as Geirim, it's much easier, because you assume they were non-Jews. So we're quite doubtful on the border groups. But there's so many that there's this. We've got this whole organization called Shavei, what they called? Shavei Gola, something like that, Michael Freund, and all over the world, there's some tribes that have preserved certain Jewish customs, although they have no real knowledge, no unbroken tradition of any sort, and they want to become Jewish. Okay, maybe some of the lost tribes, because the sages say, one opinion, that to have a chiyuv of Yovel and of Chalem in Torah, it's got to be at Kulchem. It means some say it means the majority of Israel, some means it's got to have people from all the tribes of Israel before you can have those laws as laws of the Torah. So I think, quite apart from the fact that there may have been many others, even when the tribes were lost, there were always a few that intermingled with the tribe of Yehuda, who really their ancestry went to some of the other tribes that got lost as a whole. So Shlomo HaMelech realized that maybe Beit HaMikdash won't exist forever. And then what did he do? He built a place to hide the Holy Ark deep down b'matnoniot amukot v'al deep down under the temple. And that's why there have been repeated excavations all the time being made. And the truth is, the more excavations that we make, I think I just saw a headline a few days ago, they found something else. They're finding further and further down layers of previous remnants of the temple. So maybe we're coming near to the time of the Mashiach, they'll find the Holy Ark. You know what I'll just say, by the way, it's such a deep subject, and we'll have to finish first. Need to finish this halacha. What's the proof that he hid it? Because the time Yoshua Melech, when the temple had the Holy Ark all the time, time Yoshua Melech, when they came from other empires to go investigate what type of articles do they have in the temple, and they wanted to take them away, sorts of fruit. So therefore he hid them. He said, the special place built by Shlomo HaMelech where we can afterwards have, when the time of danger, hide the ark, so he had it hidden there. It says there explicitly in Sefer Melachim, Vayomer Levim HaMevinim V'chol Yisrael Kedoshim L'Hashem, Tnu et Aron HaKodesh b'bayit shebana Shlomo ben David Melech Yisrael, Ein lechem masa b'katef, Ata Ivdu et Hashem Elokeichem. The Leviim used to, they were the ones of the Bnei Kahos, the Bnei Korach, they were Minose Aaron. They used to carry the Aron HaKodesh. He said, henceforth you won't have that duty anymore. We have to bury it and put it in the safe place under the Beit HaMikdash so that no enemy will get hold of it. And that's what Yoshua was afraid of, especially also that there were idolaters amongst Am Yisrael. I mean, his father was an idolater. He foresaw maybe his descendants are not going to be so true to the line of David HaMelech. So therefore, he said to the Leviim, now go and serve Hashem in other ways. You have to teach Torah to the people. Also was hidden there the staff of Aaron, the bottle of Mon, and the ark. In the second temple it didn't exist. In the second Beit HaMikdash, they didn't have the Aron, didn't have the Kruvim, they didn't have Ruach HaKodesh. It says a lot of things were missing. They didn't have the Urim V'Tumim, the oracle from the breastplate of the high priest. They still continued to have the breastplate of the high priest, as you can prove from the number of Gemorahs. They did it in order they should appear on the garments of the high priest in the second temple period. But they could no longer get any messages via the oracle of the lights being lit in the stones which had the Aleph Beit on. Okay, now the truth is, I've only started this, but we'll see. I would be willing, depends on you. It's just come out from the Desolation that we should try to continue Shiurim until after Pashat Nachamon. So I believe later, I'll see what time, work out time that's suitable, but I think this subject, I mean, it's got to do with the Chorban Beis HaMikdash and Yetzer Hashem also the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. And I've just really made today, it's not just a Chatzi Shir, it's a Rev Hashir. Sometimes my Shir is half a Shir. This time, it's only a Mashal.